Owen chuckled under his breath. Guess you've still got some fire, huh? I turned to him. I've always had fire. You just didn't notice it before. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly, like he was studying me for cracks or changes. Interesting, he said quietly. Before the tension could settle, a man I didn't recognize approached the group. Ms. Carmichael, they're ready for you. She placed a perfectly manicured hand on my shoulder. Stay here. This is your moment to build connections. The old me would have nodded and obeyed. Instead, I stepped just far enough forward to break her touch. I think I'll decide when and how to build my connections from now on. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes, they hardened. As she walked away, Casey leaned in. You just talked back to her? Bold. Risky. I like it. Marcus's gaze lingered on me. She doesn't tolerate unpredictability for long. And then Owen added something that made the hair on my arm stand up. You do realize she's been collecting all of us for something bigger, right? It's not just about you. That night, back in my apartment, the pendant at my throat felt heavier than ever. I pulled out the folder she'd shown me, the 5 names circled in ink. I'd already met 2. And if Owen was right, this wasn't just a mentorship. It was recruitment. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, I yanked the pendant off and set it on the counter. Without its weight around my neck, I could finally breathe. I spread the folder across my kitchen table, tracing each circled name with my fingertip. Owen, Casey, and 3 others I hadn't met yet. Next to each name were handwritten notes in Ms. Carmichael's precise script, small observations, details that felt like they'd been pulled from weeks, maybe months, of quiet watching. The more I read, the colder I felt. These weren't just profiles. They were dossiers. Every one of them contained information they couldn't have willingly given her. Medical histories, old addresses, even moments from their personal lives that felt far too private to be in print. By midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out my laptop and started searching for any public trace of the other 3 names. One by one, I found them scattered across the city, each with some kind of public presence. An artist, a local activist, a small business owner. But here's what made my skin crawl. Each of them had appeared in online event photos, with Ms. Carmichael standing somewhere in the background. It wasn't just me she'd been mentoring. She'd been orbiting all of us for years. The next day, I decided to skip her instructions for the first time. Instead of going to the location she texted me, I headed to a tiny coffee shop in the East District, the one listed as a first meeting place in one of the dossiers. That's where I saw him again. The man in the dark coat. Only this time, he wasn't alone. He was sitting with Evelyn, the elegant woman from the hidden sitting room. They were speaking in low, urgent tones, but when they noticed me, they didn't look surprised. Logan, Evelyn said smoothly, gesturing for me to join them. We were wondering when you'd start asking the right questions. I sat down slowly. What is this? What is she doing with all of us? The man leaned forward, his eyes steady. She's not just building a network. She's building leverage. Every one of us owes her something, a favor, a transformation, a secret she can use. Evelyn added, and when she's done shaping you, she'll decide whether you stay in her circle, or whether she cuts you loose and keeps the strings. I left the coffee shop with my pulse hammering. For the first time, I felt like the project she'd been calling me wasn't about me at all. I was just one piece in something much larger. When I got home, a new text from her was waiting. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., wear the silver dress. This will be your most important test yet. Do not fail me. The silver dress hung in my closet like a dare. Smooth satin, a faint shimmer that caught the light, regal without being gaudy. The kind of dress that didn't just make a statement, it demanded attention. I put it on. But this time, it wasn't just to follow her orders. This time, it was armor. I slipped my phone into a hidden pocket, recording audio before I even stepped outside. If Ms. Carmichael wanted to test me in front of her people, I was going to collect something to use against her. The address she'd sent led me to a private dining room in the upper floor of a high-end restaurant. The long table was already set, candles flickering, glasses polished to a mirror finish. Around the table sat every name from the folder: Owen, Casey, Evelyn, Marcus, the artist, the activist, the business owner. all dressed impeccably, all wearing subtle expressions of curiosity or wariness. At the head of the table sat Miss Carmichael. She rose as I entered, smiling like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Logan," she said, her voice carrying the weight of command. "Today, you stop being a student. Today, you join us." I took my seat, letting the silence stretch. "Join you in what, exactly?" Her smile didn't falter. "In influence. In shaping the image of strength, elegance, and transformation for the world to see. Together, we have reach in politics, art, media. And with the right presence, we can change the narrative. Or control it," I said quietly. A flicker passed through her eyes, there and gone in an instant. Control is just the shape change takes when it's done well. The conversation around the table was calculated introductions, shared success stories, subtle praise for Ms. Carmichael's role in each person's life. But underneath it, I could feel the tension. No one here was completely free. At one point, I caught Owen's gaze. He mouthed a single word, "Careful." When dessert arrived, Ms. Carmichael tapped her glass for silence. "Before we conclude, I'd like each of you to state aloud what this transformation has given you and what you're willing to do to protect it." The responses moved around the table like a ritual. Evelyn's cool eloquence, Marcus's measured words, Casey's surprisingly genuine tone. Then it was my turn. I let the pause hang just long enough for everyone to lean in. "What it's given me," I said slowly, "is clarity. About myself, and about the person who's been shaping me. And what I'm willing to do to protect that clarity," I glanced directly at her, "is whatever it takes. Even if it means turning the mirror back on the one holding it." Her smile stayed in place, but her fingers tightened ever so slightly on the stem of her glass. The message had landed. The next morning, a message from Ms. Carmichael appeared on my phone, short, deliberate, and dripping with intent. "Final test. 6 p.m. tonight. The Glass House Atrium. Bring nothing but yourself. Fail and you're out. No dress code. No instructions. Just a location and a threat." The Glass House Atrium was a cavern of glass and steel in the center of the city, a public space with wide open sight lines, where every step you took could be watched from multiple angles. It felt like a stage. When I arrived, the evening light spilled through the high windows, casting fractured reflections across the polished floor. Miss Carmichael stood at the center, wearing a deep crimson suit that made her look both regal and dangerous. Around us, scattered in plain sight but clearly positioned, were members of her network, Marcus pretending to read a newspaper, Evelyn sipping coffee at a corner table, Owen leaning casually against a railing. Even Casey was there, watching me like a hawk. "You've been testing me," I said as I approached her. She smiled thinly. "Of course. But tonight, we reverse the roles. You'll be the one tested. And the audience will decide if you pass." "What's the test?" Her voice softened, but the words were sharp. "You'll cross this room and introduce yourself, not as Logan, not as someone in transition, but as the person you've become. Fully, unapologetically. And you'll do it to the one person here who knows you best from your old life." I frowned. "Who?" She stepped aside. And there, just beyond her shoulder, was my former manager from the coffee shop, Brent, the man who had fired me without notice, sneering something about me not fitting in with the image of the place. I felt my pulse in my throat. This wasn't just about confidence. She'd chosen someone who had actively humiliated me, someone she knew could trigger old doubts. "Why him?" I asked. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Because if you can hold your ground with him, you can hold it with anyone. Or, we'll all know you're not ready." The others shifted subtly in their spots, watching, waiting. This wasn't encouragement, it was pressure, calculated and cold. I took a slow breath, feeling the weight of the moment. If I played this exactly her way, she'd keep her control. If I refused, I'd give her the chance to say I'd failed. So I decided on a third option. I started walking toward Brent, but not in a straight line. Instead, I moved deliberately past Evelyn, Marcus, Casey, and Owen, leaning in just enough for each of them to hear me whisper the same thing. "Watch carefully. This isn't her test anymore. The glass floor under my heels seemed to amplify every step as I made my way toward Brent. He was exactly as I remembered, smug, self-satisfied, leaning on a false sense of authority like it was part of his posture. "Logan," he said when I was close enough, his voice dripping with recognition and disbelief. "Wow. I barely recognized you. What is this?" The old me might have shrunk under that tone. Instead, I smiled. "This," I said evenly, "is me, without the limits you and people like you thought I had." His smirk wavered, just slightly. "Right. Sure. Whatever helps you sleep at night." Behind him, I caught sight of Ms. Carmichael. She was watching like a hawk, eyes sharp, lips curved in that faint approving smile, convinced I was still performing her test. But this wasn't her script anymore. I took a small step back, letting my voice carry. "Actually, what helps me sleep at night is knowing I don't answer to people who try to control the narrative about who I am, whether that's you, Brent." I turned deliberately toward Miss Carmichael. "Or anyone else." A ripple moved through the atrium. Marcus straightened in his seat, Evelyn's coffee cup froze midair, and Casey actually leaned forward, curious. Miss Carmichael's smile faltered. "Careful, Logan." "No," I said, cutting her off, my voice firm enough to echo. "You've been collecting people like me. Building dossiers. Orchestrating encounters. Dressing it up as mentorship when it's really about leverage." Gasps flickered from a few onlookers. Evelyn glanced sharply at Ms. Carmichael. Marcus's jaw tightened. Brent raised his eyebrows, clearly out of his depth now. What's going on here?" I ignored him. "You want to test me? Fine. Here's my test for you. Tell them the truth about why you brought all of us here. Or I will." For the first time since I'd met her, Miss Carmichael's composure cracked, a fractional tightening around her eyes, a stillness in her breath. "You're making a mistake," she said quietly, so only I could hear. "Maybe," I replied. "But at least it's my mistake to make."